Welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on Love Always Self. So today we wanted to take a quick moment to chat about a topic of holding space for others while still protecting your own energy. So learning how to navigate a situation or a conversation with somebody else that is maybe venting or expressing frustrations or maybe some pain that they're experiencing. And oftentimes, when we are unconscious, we can take on some of that energy. So, playing a little hot potato with some negative energy here. And we wanted to talk about how to protect yourself from that and creating conscious awareness of your ability to choose whether you take that on or learn how to transmute it.
Well, as we all know, hopefully by this time, energy science, y'all. You can't get rid of it. You can
Energy never dies. Yes.
But it doesn't go anywhere, right? As far as its existence, it's all around us. It's in everything. We are everything. It's all energy, right? So I have experienced this on a number of occasions where passing on energetically from I'm in a perfectly happy mood. Everything's going great. I talk to somebody that it's in the exact opposite direction. And afterwards, somehow, some way, now all of a sudden my scenarios are changing or altering. My mood is now mirroring what I had just heard from someone else, but I'm not consciously aware of it in that moment. And we do this. You and I do this.
Yes, that was going to be my next statement. We have experienced this numerous times, and we were just laughing about how, well, at some point we would think that after the first hot potato, pass back and forth, that we'd be like, oh, we need to do some transmuting here. But it usually takes us maybe 3, maybe 4 passes back and forth until we're like, wait a minute.
Wait, what's going on here?
A pattern. So I had a conversation with somebody that I'm close with, and I'm going to honor their privacy in this, but they expressed after having a conversation about some stuff that they were carrying with them for several days, that they were scared to bring it up because they did not want to drag me into their drama. And, I appreciate the thoughtfulness behind that. However, there's a reason why we have relationships. It's so we can support each other and, be there for each other and see things from, different perspectives as well, because when we're in it, it's sometimes hard to see different views of different things. And that response that I didn't want to bring you into the drama, it was like, ding, that was my choice. It was my choice in that moment to align myself with the drama and allow myself to get sucked in, or allow that person to manage and deal with those things with my support there. But I chose not to take it on, and I chose not to carry it with me. Yeah, I'm not going to say I wasn't affected by the information at all, but I didn't carry with me the intensity of those feelings, but rather just allowed me to process some other information as well.
And that's powerful. That allows you the opportunity to neutralize, the emotional attachment and the energy that's attached to our emotions. And remember, your thoughts, your emotions create your reality, create your scenarios around you, attracts things to you. And so you were given an opportunity there to really learn, and maybe that's why it was presented to you in the first place.
And I just like had a visual of when we vent, right? We're working on letting go of stuff, hopefully, right? Rather than just ruminating over it. There's that difference in the vent session. Is it used for healing or is it used for rumination? But I just got a visual of when we vent or express those things and actually release them, we send them up and out into the ether. And there is potential for us to, as an individual, pull that back into us rather than allowing it back to energy for transmutation.
And I think that we're in a really interesting and pivotable. Is that a word?
Pivotable.
Sure.
Pivoting.
We're
at a pivot point.
That on this planet at this time where we are becoming even more powerful creators. And I do really believe, you take it or leave it. But I really do believe that as of right now, we're kind of in a point where things happen a lot faster than they used to in that energetic space. And so when we set our focus and our intention to healing something, I believe it happens a lot quicker than necessarily it had to in the past or how it just operated in the past. Maybe that's a shift in our awareness and our own abilities. But I feel it's energetic. Even on this planet.
So how do we keep from taking on those energies from other people? Right? Number one, right off the bat, is rooting yourself in love, which sounds not tangible, right? It's hard to define what that means in a logical sense, right? But rooting yourself in that space of love and compassion, acceptance without needing change. And when we align our own energies, we are consciously practicing that grounding state, which can help in protecting us from taking on those negative energies. So grounding yourself in that heart-centered space of love and acceptance and compassion.
Yeah. And bring in, if this is not something you feel like you can do in moments like this, like bring in the modalities that we've talked about on previous, episodes. And while maybe you're speaking to somebody, just take a minute, draw that little stick figure on a piece of paper or a note, however you like to take notes. Draw a bubble around that stick figure, label that stick figure you, right? You're setting an intention to then protect your own energy as well. So even, but outside of like the aspect of your own personal protection energetically wise, you can also send the energy of that situation or that emotion or
that compassion,
that
love.
You can send it love and compassion. And yes, it is a true statement. Whether you want to believe it or not, I choose to believe our thoughts are really working in that way. Our intent is really working in that way.
Yeah. And you actually hit on something else too, that this takes practice. It does, because when you're in the moment, it's hard not to shift back to old patterns and, gossip styles and, holding space for anger or resentment. It's very, very easy to shift back if you haven't been practicing on a conscious level this awareness, and give yourself room for grace in that. It takes I keep repeating it over, practice, because you start in one space, acknowledging it minutes, hours, days after, and eventually you start recognizing it in the moment, that choice that you have.
Yeah.
And so even though it does take time, patience, and practice, it's worth it. It's worth not compromising your peace, your joy, your state of being, and taking on that negative energy.
While you were saying that, I was getting this thought process in regards to when somebody comes to you, sometimes what they're looking for is for you to agree with them and embellish in those moments with them, right? So the additional practice will be that you can just simply ask, the person you're speaking with in a compassionate way, of course, be kind with your words, but you can ask that person, what would you like from me in this moment? Are you looking for an ear to listen to? Are you looking for
Advice?
Advice? And if somebody is becoming frustrated with you because you are not joining them in that state,
which they may be looking for that,
which they may be looking for that, it is up to you to stand into your own personal power and stand your grounds on where it is that you would like to be energetically. So, and emotionally, because that can impact you, right? So
Absolutely.
There have been times where somebody comes to me and they're just fired up, so lucky I do not have that with you, Carrie. And they're fired up and they really want you to just join the bandwagon, right? Like, no, I want you to be mad with me. Like, this is crazy. And I've had to say, I don't feel like playing in that space. So I love you and I want to be here for you. And I'm here to listen to you. But if your intent is for me to also be where you're at or meet you at your level, that's not where I'm planning to go. So you can be that powerful person and stand your grounds in that way.
And I love that because you are making a choice for yourself while still providing an opportunity for that other person to choose which path they want to take.
Right.
And sometimes that's the opportunity that creates awareness in the other person.
Yep.
Who may otherwise be unaware.
Correct. Absolutely.
So, I think that we are an important dynamic in our loved ones' lives. And so in this practice, are you wanting to elevate yourself and elevate them by practicing this and being a role model of sorts? Or, are you choosing to compromise your state and your well-being, which it does impact you at a physical level? So what is your willingness in all this? What are you creating through this? Because this is another creation opportunity.
It is. We're like on a constant roller coaster of co-creating, right? We are co-creating with our fractal of ourselves. We're co-creating with source. We're co-creating with other fractals of source, including every single thing around us. We're co-creating with the different even those that carry well, I guess everything carries energy. So like even things that are around us, like the physical things, like the chair I'm sitting on, whatever, we're co-creating with, like
bird that ran into my window.
Oh, yeah.
That was traumatic this morning.
I know. I was like,
sorry, didn't mean to derail you.
Where do I hold space for you on that one? I was like, oh, that sucks. And ew, that's gross. And then kind of like, oh, but the feather thing. Oh. It's not funny, so like yeah, anyway. So opportunities abound, right? So
So, Shara, how do we transmute that energy? So say, we see that potential for the transaction to happen
Mhm.
and we're holding space for them. And maybe we do feel a little bit, maybe emotionally tied to that
Yeah.
experience that they had. How do we transmute those energies?
So for me in my practice, and it just dawned on me another reference as far as like how you want to title something, it transfer of emotions.
Mm.
I think is what I used to call this back in the day, right? So, or what it might also be known as. And, you know, transfer of emotions can be a positive thing as well,
Yes.
because you can send and create intent for the person having a less than happy experience, that love and support and light, right? Even without saying a word to them. You can create your space and awareness to uh, transition the energy that they're carrying into something better. And I'm not saying that, maybe exactly in that moment that they're going through that vent sash that they're going to miraculously heal or anything. It could take time because it's up to them to receive it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if they're not in a place of receiving, they may not feel that from you immediately. Right. It might come later on.
Mm-hmm.
So uh if your intent is to find some kind of like way to just like magically transition somebody right then and there, you might not get what you're expecting. And I think that that also comes from a more egoic standpoint. So,
Yeah. And I want to focus more on what we can do individually for ourselves under our
yeah.
own choice.
And
Yeah.
so for what we can do in our own choices is we can send them that intense love and light towards them, right? We can send them that support, remembrance that they're not alone. We can also be sure that we're standing in our own protection and our own source, right? In the sense that we don't need to take on somebody else's emotions. You can look at things from a more neutral perspective. So say like what they're coming to you with happens to maybe involve you. Um, you can ask yourself questions like, okay, why is this being presented to me in this time? What do I need to learn from this moment? Let me zoom out of my, physical state of being in this sense that let me look around at all the different scenarios in which this is being presented to me. Right. Um, that helps me understand from the multiple perspectives of looking down on that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when doing something like that and kind of putting yourself into like a different position, you're removing the emotional attachment to it and you're just looking at it completely neutrally. And that might also assist you in not having to take on all the
Mm-hmm.
things that you're receiving in that moment. So
Yeah.
those are other practices that I like to do. And then of course, on top of that, stand your ground with the person that you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
If their intent is for you to join them in that emotional state, you can make it known that that will not be where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are other, things that I
Yeah.
like to do.
Yeah. I know one of the things that came to mind was in those moments, especially if we're empaths, so if we're more sensitive to what other people are experiencing, we have a greater risk of taking on these emotions too, because we have a heightened sensitivity to them. So we are more apt to feel them,
Yeah.
even though they are not our own. So, in that, when, so say that person is venting and we're starting to feel a little of the strain related to what they are expressing. Zoom out, just like you said, we're gaining perspective and start holding compassion for what you see in that. And when we can start seeing the maybe lesser visible threads that are impacting the situation or the event, we can start to create a better understanding of maybe why that happened, why there were those reactions, why there's those feelings or that discourse or whatever. And we can start to hold space for them and love them, even though we don't agree with them.
Yep.
And that right there is a great example of transmutation.
Yeah.
We see the negative, we see the anger, we see the disruption, and we honor it without changing it, sending love and light, holding compassion for it, and releasing it. And I think too, I want to clarify what neutrality, the neutral state, neutral, it's we've got these two extremes because we're living in a, what do we call it? Polarity. Thank you. I was like polar opposites, polarity, a polar bear. We're living in polarity. So we have two extremes on this line, extreme negative, extreme positive. And where we'd like to be is this middle state of peace, of calm. We're still joyful, but we're not having to be manic about it. Excitable, not to say that that's wrong, but that too can be exhausting of our internal resources when we're at either extreme. And so I just wanted to clarify, neutrality is not saying without emotion.
No.
It's not having an extreme response and just like, I just imagine like an ocean, right? Just gently being rather than having these big waves and crashing into things.
Yeah. It's a good visual. And that is also like, from a neutral standpoint. So when I say things like zoom out, find your way into neutral, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about removing your emotions completely from a scenario because
that's
are
called
emotional.
Numbing out. That is called numbing out. And that's not what we're trying to get to.
We are emotional beings. We can't come without this. So
this is part of our experience.
Right. This is part of our experience. I am talking about being able to see it from a different perspective than the one that the heightened emotional stance is sitting in. So having a level of compassion or seeing it in a different way than how you originally are being pulled into it, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you can find those different angles and you can see it from a different point of view, you might understand a little bit easier where usually when someone's angry, they're coming from a fear-based standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that fear can attach itself to anger, to sadness, to enraged, whatever. And so when you start to zoom out to that neutral point, you can then easily, exactly what you just said, Carrie, you can then easily hold compassion for where the root cause of that is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's somebody else's experience and it's somebody else's emotions, you do not have to attach yourself to it. So that's what I'm saying is that, if you see it from that perspective, if you have a moment to look at it from that perspective, it will help you in guiding you into that new quote unquote neutral position.
Yeah. And I do want to point out, it's not bad. Like I don't like the word good and bad, like necessarily, but it's not a bad thing if you do recognize that you've attached yourself to it.
Yeah.
There's just different steps. And it's Well, it's not even different steps. It's same steps. Like you acknowledge it once you see it, and then you ask why. Why am I feeling attached to this? What do I need to learn from this? What can I learn from this?
I
And
mean,
then
asking,
Mhm.
asking
start the
yourself
practicing of
questions.
releasing. Yeah.
Right. Ask yourself questions. Remove the judgment of it, right?
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
from the whole equation. Judgment. Oh,
Yeah. Don't
judgment's
shame yourself
yeah.
for feeling. Just
I'm judging judgment.
be curious.
Yeah.
Curiosity is a beautiful thing.
It is. Self-discovery is also.
Yeah. Like the I wonder whys and the what ifs are beautiful, beautiful questions.
We should
So,
do more what if scenarios.
yeah.
Let's just get creative with what ifs.
What if you didn't have to take on other people's energy? What if you didn't have to solve other people's problems?
What if you could learn how to easily see things from multiple perspectives and gain perspective?
What if you could hold space and feel what it was like for others to hold space?
What if you had all the power within you to neutralize and heal someone's sadness?
What if you are limitless? And on that note, yes, I think we nailed this one. Let's see. Do we have any announcements?
I
don't think
no.
so. Although we did have some like really incredible recent episodes. So we, got to share about my past life regression, and then we got to have the past life regressionist on as a guest speaker. So if you hadn't had an opportunity to check those out, I highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it.
Interesting. Yeah. I can't think of any future announcements. So drink your water because it's hot.
Well, I'm going to say one announcement, and that is if you have not had an opportunity, go check out our website, click on offerings. Karista here is offering coaching sessions. I'm really, really proud of her for doing this, and it is a great opportunity for you to find out how to do exactly what we've talked about today and stepping into your power. So
thank you for that. Yes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button on all the bells and whistles, wherever you see them. Just ding, ding, ding. And hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful, joyful morning, afternoon, evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. We love you. And don't forget to love first,
love last,
and love always.
Bye.
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 Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.